Thank you for coming, Dave. I'm super psyched to have this conversation. This is the first of what will be a series of conversations that really explore how do we create a different life for ourselves, a different world for others. Kind of looking at same as it ever was, right? That so many of us fall prey to throughout the course of life. But some people pick their heads up from their desk at some point and go, I just want more. I just want better. And so I've purposefully gone out and found people like you who I feel like have been excellent at that, to just come and I talk about what's really happening. And Larry, I'm going to mute you because I think we're getting some static from you. But for us to really to dive into that as a source of both inspiration for people who very appropriately at this moment on our planet are thinking, I've got to be a part of the solution in my own life, much less the lives of others. And not making a superhero out of people who have done that. I think we tend to do that. We tend to see people who have had a major pivot or done something significant to contribute to the world. And I think it's our tendency to assign superhuman powers to those people because it kind of, in doing so, it lets us off the hook. And so, so thank you, Dave, for taking time.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure.
So for people who do or do not know about you, the classic bio is corporate rock star, right? I met you when you were at Shaw and kicking ass at Juno, and then you went to Quigo and sold that to New Star. And
Quigo we sold to AOL, and then I went to Microsoft, built out Ad Center there, and then did my own gig, Aggregate Knowledge, sold that to New Star.
That's what you sold to New Star. So
and then Facebook.
Yeah, so here you go, right? You're this kid from New York State, right? You went to SUNY Beamed, and it's not like you were like, you know, coming from Harvard and pulling a lot of connections and stuff. And one thing I love about you is you have made your own way, even through that amazing trajectory of like ladder climbing. And I'm interested in tech, and I'm interested in media, and like you're kind of the tech world poster boy, right? I've got my little hands around you on the screen. Oh God. Poster boy of if you work hard, you can do this. So what do you think gave you that kind of gumption to say, I'm going to take this on. I'm going to learn how to buy and sell companies. I'm going to learn how to build and sell companies. I'm going to learn how to invest in companies. Like it's the whole shebang.
Buffalo chips is the answer. That's the straight up truth.
Tell me. The secret is buffalo chips. I love it.
Yeah. I actually grew up in a town called Batavia, outside of Buffalo. So I was from the town outside of Buffalo. And so you can imagine when you go to, you move to Manhattan and start your career, Buffalo's this like town in the Midwest if you're from Manhattan. And so I very quickly, I was a state school kid in Manhattan from, I might as well have been Nebraska. As far as, in New York City, if you're out, upstate is anything outside of Manhattan.
Yeah.
So you really quickly figure out that people look at you differently. And so Buffalo, my Buffalo hometown identity gave me a chip on my shoulder. And I'm grateful for it every minute of every day. It's the biggest gift that my parents and my hometown have given me. The Buffalo Bills have contributed to that, much to my dismay. But there's truth to the whole, there's truth to the whole armor of it all.
Yeah.
And so at every job that I went to. So for example, I was the first group of people to be hired from the non-Ivy pool that was the D.E. Shaw formula. Literally, I was the first class, and they told us that coming in the door, and we were looked down on a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I could look around, and I meet people all the time who are smarter than I am. I meet people who can do math faster, or who can do, who tested better on this or that. But there's nobody who can outwork me.
Yeah.
Just flat out. Because that's a choice.
Yeah.
And if you want to go head to head with me, get prepared to work 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, because that's what we're going to do. And I'm going to see how long you can last, because I do it just because it's fun, because I'm from Buffalo. And that's how I look at it. And you better start to enjoy it, or, I'll smoke you.
Yeah.
And that's the chip on my shoulder that my hometown gave me. And it was just as simple as that, is where it started.
I got to tell you, I freaking love all of that. So here you are, buffalo chips. I get it now, right? You got the buffalo chips. You're working your ass off. You're living the dream. Like, seriously, Dave, you're like, back when I met you, you partied with rock stars, and now you probably party with corporate rock stars, right? And
yeah, my partying days are a little behind me, but
people, me too.
Yeah,
I know. I'm like drinking water and you have tea. But so you move out to the West Coast, you get the gorgeous house, I'm sure, beautiful wife, 2 kids, right? And you're trucking along really in the best place to be in the tech world, right? You're at Facebook, you got in early enough that you got to see it back when it was really its own culture.
Yeah, it was a magic place.
Talk a little bit about that, because I think that part of what gives us courage to change is when we've seen good and then we've seen it erode, right? Because it almost reinforces our faith that better is possible, right? So I'm just curious, like, what was that like for you? And
I don't think I learned that lesson at Facebook. I think that my parents taught me a lot about that. And I think that I learned bits of that at every job. I've never really had a job that's been all good or all bad.
Yeah.
I just don't that's not how life works. And a lot of it is what you make of it. You've known me for a long time. I'm stubborn as a mule, and that comes with that chip. And so if I don't look at something and say, you can't change it, I look at it and say, what must you believe in order for it to change? Now, there's a lot of things that I look at, and I look at the things that are stacked that in order for it to change, and I'm just like, yeah, I don't want to climb that hill. Let's go around that one, just because there's too many things stacked up against it.
Yeah.
But I have looked at some pretty massive things that people think I'm crazy for taking on, because I look at them, and if the forces of nature are lined up with you, then it must change. And so the question is when. That's where I believe human beings can be a big catalyst. So, like, forest fires are going to happen, right? They have historically occurred, and nature will cause them. Yeah. And so farmers do things all the time to start fires to cause the natural thing to happen to the soil, and that they need to have happened for their land. And that's kind of how I look at it. Like, that's a natural process that has to happen. And so what can we do to be a catalyst for positive change? And I'll work pretty hard against some good odds if I think that the forces of nature are aligned. But there are certain things, like, if the things that you have to believe in order for the outcome that you want to happen are just insurmountable and not inevitable, then I won't take it on. I'm not like crazy.
But you have taken on some really big stuff.
Mm-hmm. for sure.
Like, you've reinvented who you were at least 2 or 3 times that I know.
Yep.
Right. Yep. And you've made these huge changes, and even with Ureeka, right? Like, this is a major,
that's a big one. This might be the biggest one I've ever taken on.
So I mean, it is kind of what's needed on the planet now more than anything ever. I mean, just for people who don't know what Ureeka is.
Sure. Yep. So Ureeka is a community that is set up to democratize economic opportunity and access. Like, that's the mission. At a macro economic level, we want to make sure that everybody has equity in economic opportunity. The market that we've decided to start in is to help small businesses. If you want to grow a business in the world that we live in today, you must have 2 things in order to be successful. And we know this from studying the data, and ask any small business who's executing out there. You must have access to capital, and you must have access to the best practices of how to grow in a digital economy where 80% of the universe happens on this device. And if you don't know how your business fits into this device as a small business, the odds are stacked against you. And so if those 2 things apply to every business today. In fact, the person who crystallized this the most for me was this is a true story, was a guy who makes kind of urban, cool, funky cowboy hats based out of St. Louis. And he said to me, he said, look, I'm really good. I make the best hats on the planet. Like, I'll stand by that. It used to be, I could take a map of St. Louis and draw a circle around my store and tell you the 5 people that I kind of compete with. Today, half of those sales go to Amazon, and everybody with a website is who I compete with. I don't have a clue at where to begin.
Yeah.
And that hit me like a ton of bricks. It was like such a profound moment. And it was like, oh yeah, this is a big deal. Like, every business is facing, what do I do about these 2 things? And one begets the other. And even if you're building a lifestyle business, like, how you think about expansion and how you have to pay for these new channels, how many of them that there are. The average business has to work with 13 different vendors. Like, which ones to choose? How do they all impact each other? And what impact does that have on on how people on this phone figure out where the heck I am? How do they purchase? How hard is that? How do I get my product or service from point A to point B in a world where most people don't leave their house? Like, this is just the variables and the complication has gone up exponentially. If you are a white or Chinese male and you live in Silicon Valley, you have access to, within 1 or 2 phone calls, to all of the best practices that you need to know for free.
Yeah.
There was a study done that the average woman of color who runs a small business spends almost $250,000 more to run the same business as the white male in Silicon Valley. Despite the fact that labor is more expensive in Silicon Valley, real estate's more expensive in Silicon Valley, it's because of the churn that goes through for them to figure out the best practices that frankly, I didn't even know it, but my privilege was giving me the opportunity to get for free.
Yeah.
And so with what's going on in the world right now, I look at it and say, no, my race has no impact on me and what I do. That is the definition of privilege. Because my race, I don't perceive that it has an impact, means it has a profoundly positive impact and gives me a much better chance of success. And my geography is a huge part of that. If I live here versus I live in Buffalo, New York, same person, I have a profoundly better chance than if I sit there in Buffalo.
Yep.
And so the whole mission is to make sure that access to those best practices, to that understanding of how capital works, to understand how to get those things across in a digital world, that is not the barrier. That the barrier to success is how hard you're willing to work and how good your ideas are.
So when did you have this conversation with the hat dude in St. Louis? Was that?
Oh, it was multiple years ago now, and it just had such a profound effect on me.
Yeah. Did that kind of get everything going?
Absolutely. It was like, oh, and then everywhere I went, I would kind of test the same thing, but it was that guy who said that thing that kind of got it rolling. Serendipitously, that same year, a gentleman who's been a wonderful mentor to me throughout my career, completely selflessly, has never really asked anything of me, has just always helped me, from Buffalo. He's a very well-known investor. He called me and asked me to help with some economic development with the city of Buffalo, and they were starting this thing that today is called 43 North. And it's the largest pitch competition, single purse. It's $5 million annual purse. It's the largest pitch competition in the world, I believe. Don't quote me on that one, but I'm pretty sure. At $5 million, it's real deal. And what they're trying to do is attract businesses to the city of Buffalo. And he asked me to come and do that. And to be candid, I did it out of my loyalty to him and a little bit out of guilt for my hometown.
Yeah.
And he did something that was really smart. The very first day that I got there, he had a bunch of us come in from a bunch of different walks of life, and a bunch of different expertise perspectives. And what he did is he marched a whole bunch of companies from Buffalo all right in front of us. And we got to meet them. They told us about their companies. They got to ask questions, and we helped them kind of spot solve some problems right there. What was amazing to me was that how hard they were working, how scrappy that they were being. Frankly, most of them were cash flow positive or profitable because they had to be. They didn't have the luxury of a bunch of venture capitalists throwing money at them. So that wasn't an option. So they were more efficient and had some better operational aspects to them. And their ideas were no better or worse.
Yeah.
They were largely women, mostly people of color, and I was just blown away at two things. One, the quality of the ideas of the businesses and the success that they were having, and two, how hindered they were with things that I took for granted, and that within one phone call, I could profoundly change the trajectory of a lot of them. And so I started to volunteer as a coach and recruit and mentor, and recruited a whole bunch of my friends, and brought a bunch of them out to Silicon Valley, and started this journey of just trying to help people. And that's all I thought it would be, frankly. I didn't think of it as business. I thought of it as just my responsibility because I can. And frankly, selfishly, it was rewarding and fun. Like, I love to play company. And I do. And so it's fun.
So you were playing Office, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. And dabbling in a whole bunch of businesses that I didn't know anything about, and learning verticals I didn't know anything about. And that was like fun.
Yeah.
And the people are hyper rational and appreciative. And so it was great. It was refreshing. And it was such a big change from the nauseating, technorati of Silicon Valley. Yeah. That I was like, oh, if I'm going to choose to spend time, let me spend it over here. And then the magnitude of the problem, I started to open my eyes to. And my now co-founder, Melissa Bradley, happened to be sitting next to me that day in Buffalo. She's from the Baltimore, D.C. area, and got brought in. She has dedicated her lives to working with entrepreneurs of color and women in particular, and helping them get mentorship and coaching and start businesses. And so she taught me a lot about how pervasive the problem is. And so I pretty much was volunteering with her organization for a couple of years, and just kind of got frustrated with the lack of action and the lip service that a lot of initiatives pay to the plight of these folks. And it occurred to me, like, it's not ever going to systemically change until there's an economic reason to do so.
Yeah.
And if the companies who do it make more money than the companies who don't, it'll change.
Exactly.
But until that point, it's all just going to be shuffling around the cards, unfortunately. And that's not the world I want my kids to grow up with. I think it's actually bad for humankind.
Yeah.
So I'm not a Black Lives Matter supporter because I think I should be. I am selfishly because it's important for me, and it's important for the world, and it's important for my kids.
Yeah. Yeah. So Dave, this is such an awesome story. This is why I wanted you to share it in this format. I mean, was there a point when people around you, like your friends, or were like, "What are you doing, man? You're crazy. You've got it made here at Facebook," or
yeah.
What was, tell me about that, because so much of what all of us face, right, when we're making a pivotal shift is pushback. Like, you're changing, you're different, you're breaking from the rules. And I call it almost, so there's this expectation that your social currency is something that other people start to depend on, right?
Yep.
And the social currency of your identity, the social currency of what you mean to the community. And when you break rank, you're kind of taking some juice, right, away from people just relationally. So I'm just curious, what was that like to come out?
Yeah. I got a lot of people who thought I was crazy. My dad being one of them.
Yeah.
He was like, "Why would you do that?" And I was like, "Dad, if I can't, how can I not?" And you know, I said, "Look, I'm more blessed than I ever imagined. Why? Like if I don't, how do I sleep? How do I look at myself? Like, if I don't try, if I try and I fail, so be it." And I tell my investor group and I tell my employees, like, this mission that we're undertaking at Ureeka might not work, right? And we might crash and burn, but we're going to help a crap load of people along the way.
Yeah.
And we are 100% going to be part of something that will start towards a solution. And I'll wear that like a badge of honor all day long. Now, that's a really easy thing for me to say because I'm not worried about are my kids going to eat tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that's a very privileged position for me to say, and I'm acutely aware of it. But it's because I'm aware of it that I have an obligation to try to do something more.
Yeah, because I want to speak to that, Dave. The thing is, how many Daves are there that have not stepped into that? That rather than thinking about, I've built up this level of comfort. Granted, I've worked really hard. I've built up a level of comfort. I'm not worried about the roof over my head. But that urge to keep and protect and to persist and maintain is stronger than that whisper in the back of your head. Psst, there's got to be a bigger way to serve. There's got to be a bigger way to contribute to this world. Like, what do you think tipped the scale for you? Because that's pretty instructive. Because I talk to a lot of high performers who make a lot of zeros on their paycheck, and they struggle with this.
Yeah. Some of it is the wiring. So I was an entrepreneur before I had anything. Like when I decided to leave, that first company that went public in the .com and all that stuff, like I left money on the table to go to a startup with, a couple of guys from Israel and two other guys who'd never accomplished anything. And we built a company that ended up exiting for over $300 million. Like there's a little bit of, I'll walk the tightrope in me. And there are people who are more adverse to taking risks than others. And you need to be comfortable in that position in order to take some of these steps. And I'm okay with that. And that there'll be a whole bunch of other people who, if I can get past this first hump of success with my new mission, who will jump on board, and they'll be awesome. That doesn't make them any less brave. It doesn't make them any less a part of the solution than I am. This is just my role in it. You might be one of those people who is sitting with all those zeros, and you might be sitting in finance, and maybe your obligation isn't to leave your role. It's to prep the envelope on what you're willing to bet on that is a little bit out of the ordinary. Maybe that's your contribution.
Yeah.
And everybody has a contribution that they can make if you believe selfishly that the world needs it for you. If you're doing it just for altruistic reasons, it's fleeting. You're not going to stay with it. I'm not there to convince that. It has to be selfish. If you want to go out and protest and you're doing it because you think you need to be there, you'll go to one little thing and that'll be that, and you won't have much of an impact. Stay home. But if you think that you need to be there, like I think that if I don't do something to change the systemic gap and opportunity across this country, my kids are going to grow up in a hate-filled world.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't want that.
But I love it that you're talking about the upside of selfishness, right? The upside of personal motive, right? Because I think a lot of times that kind of.
Tevis, my battery's going to die. Give me 5 seconds. 5 seconds.
Okay.
Sorry. I can hear you, by the way.
Okay. So
okay.
It kind of dovetails with the insistence that you had that this has to be for profit, right?
Yeah.
People are like, oh, you better make a nonprofit. And you're like, no, there's an SB, there's all kinds of nonprofit until there's kazash, cha-ching, right, involved. People are not going to take this seriously. And what's interesting to me about the correlation between personal self-interest, societal self-interest, and this urge towards the convergence of them is that when those things have aligned for what you're doing, it does have a potential to, if not Ureeka, the brand moving the world forward, at least putting forth a model that goes beyond, let's say, conscious capitalism or some of the social venture labs, right, that really fund these things, to really set
those are cute.
Be nice. Those are some of my friends, right? But this is elevating it beyond. But I love what you're saying, that personal conviction is not enough from an altruistic standpoint, that there's got to be some kind of, no, dude, I got to have this.
Yeah. And let me be straight up. I plan to make a crap ton of money doing this. Like, I'm not ashamed of that. I'm not afraid of it. I think it's necessary for the macro impact to happen. Because if I'm making money, that means all the other people involved are making more money.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and that's how it's got to go. And the way that I look at all this stuff, and if an investor gives me $1, like and I can put $10 in my pocket as a result of that, they better make 100.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's got to be that kind of value chain. And so humans, there are two emotions that drive most people in business. And it's fear and greed, and fear always trumps greed. Right. And so what I want to do is create a world where the economics of not changing are so scary that you must change.
Yeah. Well, I'm game on that.
Yeah. And I have to go, somebody's got to go lead the way, and somebody's got to go figure it out the first time. And if I can make a lot of money along the way, that's the only reason to do it.
Well, so is your drive around legacy and impact? Like, is that what, like, as you think, okay, I've got another X number of years on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about the world I'm leaving my kids. I don't want to be hate filled and polarized, right?
Yep.
But is what's driving you that thought of legacy and impact?
Impact, yes. Legacy, no.
No.
Yeah.
So not so much.
If I'm dead, why do I care? I'll be dead. Like, I want to, you know, I'm much more interested in drinking through my wine collection than I am what you talk about at my funeral. Because I'll be dead. So I've never understood that. So what I am interested in is leaving my kids a world that is better off than the one that was given to me. And I'll be straight up. The baby boomers didn't do that. My parents didn't do that. They're handing us a pile of shit that they created. Yeah. They made the world worse in their reign of power. And now, and Generation X simply didn't have the numbers to oust them. And that was a problem. But the millennials do have the numbers. And those people were raised by Gen X. And they're starting to say, enough with this. Mm-hmm. You know, enough with the old ways of doing this. And, you know, I talk to people who, one of the first questions they always ask me is, what's it like to manage millennials? And I'm kind of like, it's awesome. Like, we raised them. Like, they're socially conscious. They want to make sure that we're doing the right thing by the environment. They want a fair shot to win on merit. Like, good job, Gen X. Well done raising them. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go clean up the mess that the boomers left us. That's polarizing. I'm sorry. Not sorry. You know, if that's if those qualities and managing human beings with those qualities but they're entitled. No, they're not. They want to do good. And if you want them to do nothing and they challenge you in that, then you're the problem. Yeah. So go home, get out of the way. That means, like,
This is one of my favorite tirades of yours.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, I love it. Okay, so we're going to wrap up in just a second. So my parting shot is, you were talking about impact, that's really
important. Yep.
So even though you'll be dead and you'll have drunk through all of your wine.
Mm-hmm. Well, impact is how I got the wine. Yeah.
And you'll have made $100 for every $10 for every $1, right? I followed the math. What will look different in this shift that you're creating?
Yeah, if I'm successful, there will be a whole bunch of businesses that get created largely through underrepresented communities, geographically, digitally challenged regions will be able to create living wage jobs. Geography won't be a barrier to where you work or who you do business with. You know, the fastest growing segments of the population happen to be, in the Latinx communities and the Black and African American communities. And they're starting more companies at a rate 3x and 6x that of their white counterparts. If those groups, we need to help those groups of people create jobs. They have to be successful so that they can hire people, or there just aren't going to be enough jobs. That's the straight math on it. And so, geography, if I can eliminate geography and as a barrier and remove all of the glass ceilings that prevent race and gender and all the things that technology can really eliminate from having access to capital and to the grow customer strategies that you need in a digital world, it'll have profound impact. Because if I do it, 100 other companies will try to do it too. Yeah, for sure. That's how we'll have macroeconomic impact.
Especially if you make it profitable. So for me, for other people, what can we do to support? Like, you already told me to sign up as a mentor. I did, but I never got around to doing anything about it. Like, what should we be doing? Because this is what everyone's crazy about right this second is, what can we do? What can we do? What can we do?
Yeah. So the short answer is you can actually do something. The vast majority of people are like, I should get up and do this, and they don't. And I'm not all that fussy about what you do, so long as it is an action. And that's what I don't care what you say. I want you to take an action and then go to sleep at night and just ask yourself every day, did I take one action today that helped me create the world that I want to have forward? And so if that happens to be with me, all the better. If you have an expertise in something, go to ureeka.biz, www.ureeka.biz, and the U is because it's about you. Ureeka.biz, ureeka.biz. And if you have an expertise, sign up as a mentor. Give 10 minutes, 20 minutes of your time to somebody who needs it, just in your expertise world. You don't have to leave your home. You don't have to leave your laptop. You don't have to leave your phone. You don't have to commit a weekend to building houses. Just go and spend 10 minutes helping a business with the expertise that you have, because you will change somebody's life and it will blow you away. That's thing one. If your thing is money or capital, reach out. We run a program every single month where we put people in touch with investors who are actually putting the money together. Every fund I've talked to says that they have some impact on it. And then when you go through their numbers, it's always 1%. Yeah. Like, if you're somebody who really thinks that they want to put their money where their mouth is and they're in the financing world, then reach out. We run a program every month, and you stand up and you meet real businesses with real entrepreneurs, and you're going to look them in the eye and you're going to tell them yes or no. And if you want to do that, that's an action.
Yeah.
And if you say no to them, that's still action, because I ask that you explain why.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Take an action.
Oh, I love you, man.
Thank you. I love you too.
Dave, I'm going to just ask, I don't know if anyone has questions, because this has been pretty
fire
full on, but you guys, does anyone have any questions for Dave? No pressure. It looks like they're all being very content.
Oh, good. No. Hi.
Hi, Larry.
Hi. Hi, David. Nice. This is great. It's tough to make a character judgment, obviously, in 30 minutes, but I do get a good positive feel from what you've said. But I do have a question. When you're talking to these small businesses, you said you had the opportunity to make a change via one phone call.
Yep.
Now, so in that, while you're mentoring, are you mentoring the small startup how to be white or how to be successful as they are?
No, how to be successful as they are. And we've broken the model of what most people think of as traditional mentorship. There's all kinds of programs out there where you can go get a free mentor, and they're largely old white men teaching you how to be academic and white.
Yeah, I went through that.
Yeah, it's like, I don't want that.
It's
like,
a nightmare. Yeah.
Like, I don't like that. That's not helpful to even me. And look at me. I'm as pasty white as they get. What I want you to do is to donate your expertise. And so, for example, the average person will come on and say, because they find out I work at Facebook, they'll always say, what can I do, to do better on Instagram? And my very first question to them is, did you build your website for the desktop or for mobile? And immediately they're confused. And I'll say, aha, that means you built it for a world that operates on a laptop or a desktop, not for a phone. And I give them a little piece of script, and I say, here, go run this, and tell me what your mobile load time is. And if it's not 3 seconds or less, you're already pushing a boulder up a hill. And so in a 10-minute conversation, I can give them an action to take that will help their business, and it will help them adapt to a world that is mobile. And almost everybody who's in industry has a 10-minute thing that they take for granted every single day in what it is that they do, that if they were willing to share that knowledge specifically to somebody else's business, because that's how we learn as human beings. We're better. We're a society. We are, we are a global community at this point. People learn better with people, and we have all the data and research on that. And so if you're willing to lend a hand to somebody in 10 minutes or less on your expertise, that's far more helpful than standing up saying, I'm going to teach you how to be a leader or a business person. And so our mentorship is spot solving problems, because most of these folks who run these businesses work tirelessly and they're very on the ball and very sharp. They don't need you to teach them how to think. They need the access to what you take for granted.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting differentiation between what you're doing and a lot of the mentorship programs I've seen, is that it is some person going, well, this is how you have to do it, blah, blah, blah. The difference is that kind of curating specific gaps in either what the processes are, what the value chains are, et cetera, that you can, like, kind of like you said, here's a little piece of code that I know it's nothing to me, and it's really going to help you, right? And exactly. I think that's awesome, because
it's not a preach about how to be a better manager. That you won't find that.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for that. That's the answer I was hoping to get.
Anybody else?
And I'm not doing it because I'm particularly high integrity. I'm doing it because, for selfish reasons, it's not the world that needs to exist for my children to pursue happiness.
Yeah, and you've said a lot of things, but you've said one small thing that you kind of gulped back, which gave me a very good impression when you said, "How do I sleep? How do you sleep?" And that's just a natural, heartfelt, gut wrench response to a business question, which was welcomed to my ears.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, Dave, I'm super grateful. I know that I promised to cut you loose by 3:45, and I'm a minute late. Okay. I'm really grateful. I know that those who are hearing this are probably inspired and grateful, and thank you.
Inspired, I'll take. Grateful, I'll
oh, Mr. Humble, whatever. Dave, thank you. Truly.
Thanks,
thank
Tevis.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.